Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. We're here.
All right, so I'm just going to begin by saying today I got up, and even before I had coffee, I had a thing of Celsius.
Is that like an energy drink?
The energy drink.
Okay.
And because the coffee couldn't brew quick enough, and so I was like, I'm going to have some Celsius. I had a little bit of headache. Then had a cup of coffee at the same time I was having Celsius.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Celsius was done. Coffee was done.
Right.
I don't feel like those mix well.
And then I had Starbucks.
Okay.
So I'm actually talking really well today.
That's
We're on
awesome.
2.5
I'm on fire.
right
Yeah.
now.
That's really
So
great.
watch out, everybody.
Wow. Yep. We'll get it out of the way.
All right. So
Congratulations.
Yeah. So to kind of set the scene as far as timing goes, Palm Sunday is this upcoming Sunday.
Yep.
And so everything is beginning to point towards Holy Week. And so as our desire is to help kind of like cultivate this environment that everyone feels inspired spiritually or challenged spiritually or spiritual engagement, I want to point out a couple things that our church is doing to kind of point at Holy Week. So first of all, so this past year, the four of us did a podcast.
Yep.
This is kind of how it birthed,
It
too.
was born.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
this
born
is-
here.
that's where it
was
started.
born during
Yeah.
Holy Week.
This is our anniversary.
Yay!
Oh,
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
I forgot. I'm sorry. Here's a card.
We just remembered with you. Like,
Happy anniversary. Because it was at that point that I was like, oh, this is so fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like from the beginning of it all, our goal is to have fun. Like the church can be fun and theology can be fun. And so going through each day, Sunday through Saturday, had been such a great experience that those podcasts are going to be coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of doing those same podcasts all over again, because there's no point,
Do it.
all of us have
like
taken,
here, you mean? Like it's
Yeah.
worth listening to,
Yes.
but like right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
those are going to go up again.
Yep.
Those are going to be circled and shiny and shimmery.
Yeah.
So go and play those things
Yep.
because the place you are today is different than the place you had been before.
So true.
And so I'm going to go and I'm going to play these again.
We
And-
will link that playlist in the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but to add on to it, each day there's going to be a audio spiritual practice that is tied to that particular podcast content.
Yes.
Yep.
And so each of us, including Pastor Allen, has had the opportunity to create a audio experience. So I was hoping like for us to explain that and like the behind the scenes heartbeat of it. So like for instance, the idea came up to do the audio experiences, and Jenny typed up this text. And so I got a whole page of text. And so it's supposed to be like super easy. Like, here, do this, turn on your phone, say these things. So I have a speech impediment. and then
Except for today because of Celsius and
yeah,
coffee.
yeah. And so here's your text, and you have to do it under a certain time limit. Thanks.
I put you in a pressure cooker.
3 minutes.
And it's just like, oh my gosh. But I found that I got so inspired by the content that I wanted. And so first of all, so the first time I did it, I crushed it. Okay. Like I was like, oh my gosh, KJ, I'm proud of you. Like I was like, oh, good. And then I'm like, I think I could do this better. And then I did it again. But then as I was doing it, I got inspired by the content itself and I changed it. And then I did it again. I did it a total of 5 times. And each time it changed a little different to the point when I got done doing my text, it ends, so it has this like summary thing. And it's like, here's the point. The point is, God's heart. The point is blah, blah, blah. The point is this.
I didn't put blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. But then I found myself going, may you experience, like there in the like fire, like it turned into, I want you to experience the things that are in this text, in this experience, in this page. And if you do it, I hope it transforms you how it's transformed me by just saying the words. So that's the experience that I had.
I was able to like say who was going to get what. And so I had picked a day for me, but then Alan wanted that one. So I ended up getting Good Friday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
It is a good one.
It's a good Friday.
But it wasn't the one I wanted.
Yeah,
So it was heavier. And so I was actually sitting in my closet because that's like acoustic wise, it's very padded in there. And I did it the first time, just run through, right? Yeah. And then the second time, you start actually just kind of meditating a little bit on what you're actually speaking. So rather than just like, here, I'm giving you content, you start experiencing it. Yeah. And so then I played it back, and there were way too many spit sounds in it. So
hey, if that's the only problem, I celebrate that. Yeah.
So then the third time was easier to go through because you are like, I'm not just reading content. I should be experiencing this. And it's funny because the one I had, Stetson, you're preaching this coming weekend, and there's this underlying message of like, you are not alone. And in the context the content that we put out in the podcast last year, when we were talking about Good Friday, there was this underlying message of He dies with you. He is with you. And so it was this like, He is with you. So it was interesting just listening to your message and just being like, wow, I'm obviously being told I am with you.
Yeah. So. That's a huge thing that I've learned like over the past year. And it very much fits with Holy Week, and just like realizing Jesus's response to suffering is to suffer with the person who is suffering. And just seeing that play out through Holy Week is huge. Like that has changed so many ways that I perceive the story that we are stepping into this week in so many ways. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and that's been the thing that like I was thinking about when we were doing the practices. Like last year, one of the things that I thought, like listening to the podcast, and you probably heard this a lot from people too, is like, man, I never knew this about Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. Or Saturday.
That's
yeah,
right.
Saturday.
I love Saturday.
That's the one I wanted, by the way.
Yeah. But man, to be able to, one, learn content and then actually have a moment to step in and experience it, like these practices, that's what they're designed to do. It's not more content. It's, hey, there was some good content. Now do something with it.
Yeah, it was so cool. Like going over these practices, it was kind of like experiencing the podcast again. So the content that I had been how Jesus goes into the temple and turns over the tables in the temple, and so the practice is built around our that the temple is our heart. And are there things that are in our heart that have to be turned over for healing to happen? And then I'm just like, so if that's the experience that I had, I'm so excited to see the experiences that you all have had, and then that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm just feeling really blessed to be a part of it. So thank you guys.
Hi.
Hi, Stetson.
Sorry, I just had to clear my throat.
No, it's great.
I could say something.
Yeah. Okay. Neat.
So on that note, like I knew I was going to be preaching on Palm Sunday, but I didn't get the chance to like work into Palm Sunday, just kind of like where we're at in Acts and like the overlapping and the layers and stuff. And it might be fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
So like, I think, so the story that we're at in Acts, basically, the really, really short version is the apostles are teaching people about Jesus in the temple, and the priests who run the temple They are not okay with this. And they keep arresting the apostles, and the apostles keep getting released. Like it seems like it can't be
Revolving
stopped.
door.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was reminding me back of like on Palm Sunday, Jesus is like walking into Jerusalem, and people are telling him he needs to make his followers be quiet because they're talking about how Jesus is king. And he says this thing of like, if they are silent, the rocks are going to cry out. Almost like it's this unstoppable thing that can't stop happening. But I feel like that's just like the beginning of this almost like step by step following the footsteps of Jesus that's occurring in this story of they're proclaiming this thing and people are telling them to stop, and they can't. Like, they are continuing to do this. They go into the temple. They are aggravating these people. They're being brought in front of the Sanhedrin. Like, all these things that like happen to Jesus, except when Jesus is brought to the Sanhedrin, that's like pretty much the second to last step before he's crucified. And it's got me wondering, like, I've really been thinking about these things from the perspective of the apostles. Like, they have no idea how this is going to play out. But up to that point, they have been mirroring the journey of Jesus. And Jesus basically said, do what I have done.
Yep.
And they get to the second to last place where Jesus was sentenced to be killed. I am sure, like 99% sure, they think this is it. Right. Like that they're going to enter into the next step that Jesus took, and that's death. But then suddenly it diverts in a different direction, at least for a time.
Huh. That's a really good perspective or hypothesis.
Yeah. And I think what's so fascinating about that, like the first time, right, when Jesus got arrested, what did they all do? They fled, right? I mean, they were afraid, but like at this point in the story, there's no fear. They're just like approaching it the same exact way Jesus did.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about that, like post-resurrection, that I think changed them in a pretty significant way. But I don't know that I've ever really pieced that journey together like you just did.
And like they end up getting whipped, but they get released from that encounter. But they come out rejoicing. I wonder how much of that rejoicing could possibly be from the fact that all signs were pointing towards their crucifixion.
Right.
And they're walking out alive. And what that would feel like to see, in a way, in a sense, not only are they walking in the footsteps of their master, but they just surpassed the journey of their master in that, like, this is unprecedented territory. Like, they made it past the point that Jesus made it to. What do we do next? Kind of a thing. Like, how long is this ability to do this going to go?
Right.
And that's just theory.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't have anything concrete to back that up with. But if I was them, those would be the directions that my mind was going of like, okay, now we're doing something that Jesus didn't
There's
do.
not blue, or it's like, I mean, just very simply put, he had conquered the part that included them dying.
Yes,
And-
that's
and
a
so
beautiful way
this
of putting
does not
it.
exist anymore.
Right.
And so the Empire can do what the Empire can do, and they will beat you, but then they have to set you free or something. You know, like they don't have a choice.
Mhm.
Huh.
And I think there could be a connection there because, I mean, don't get me wrong. My experience of the Bible has been it, like the verse that says it lives and it breathes. Like, I think that is so true.
Right.
Like it feels like this force that is constantly churning. It will never be irrelevant today. However, the narratives that talk about the things people did before us, they come to a stopping point.
Yep.
And at this point in the story, the apostles, like up to this point, they're just following Jesus' example. But then they get let go at the point that he was crucified.
Yeah.
And now they're in uncharted territory.
Yeah.
And they have to go beyond just the, well, here's what he did, here's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Here's what he did next, here's what I'll do. Here's what he did.
WWJD.
Yeah.
Right. Except it was WDJD. What did Jesus
Yeah.
do? And now, for the first time, they're in the what would Jesus do
Yeah.
territory.
And then they go into a what is Jesus doing?
Exactly. Right.
It's a lot of
And-
bracelets.
Yeah. And so given what I said, it's like the Bible never stops, like it's constant.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as far as the narrative is concerned, eventually we get to a point where it's like, okay, we're
This is
going
uncharted
beyond
territory.
what we've read about people doing.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty, right? Because you follow the book of Acts. There really is no conclusion to the book of Acts, and they lived happily ever after. It's just
And I think like there's some phrases in the book of Acts
Yeah.
that are like, it seemed good to the spirit and it seems good to us.
So we did it.
You know, like, so we're going to go for it,
Well,
you know,
but
that are not like,
that's the
Yeah.
posture
Yeah.
we still have today.
Yeah.
Like and this is what I love about Palm Sunday. This is what I love about Easter. The book of Acts is it's not just their story. Like you follow history, we are actually stepping into that same story, right? So what they began, right? You know, when Jesus left, it was like, okay, I guess there's this thing called the church. Well, the church has continued for thousands of years, and we are a part of that. Like even here in Greeley, Colorado, and I love that because I think sometimes when we think about Easter, Palm Sunday, Holy Week, all these things around it, we have this mentality and perspective where we're focusing on what happened back then. But I really think Easter, and we did this in the podcast last year, like it is actually about us stepping into that right now.
Right.
It's not just oh yeah, this cool thing happened way back then. It's like, no, like, yes, that did, but there is something happening here right now in the midst of where we are, and we get to be a part of it. And I just love that.
and don't you think like it's kind of funny anytime there's a Christian holiday, so even though all of us have done it like 40 times or you know or 44 or I don't know
28 for Jenny.
that it seems like every time it comes around
Yeah.
it's like, oh my gosh, I'm really desperate for this
Uh-huh.
now. It would be very helpful if this happened right now, you know, like there's that hunger and like heart preparation, and like if the season of Advent all of a sudden popped up today, I'd be like, I don't actually
there. Yeah.
feel the Advent desire.
December rolls around though.
But this experience of going into a time of chaos, of poverty, of death and hardship and begging for
Yeah.
death to be conquered.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Mm.
I think there's something just really beautiful about being able to experience the death of Christ and then his resurrection as who you are today compared to who you have been in the past.
Mhm.
That's a fun question.
Even
to
last year.
engage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, what does resurrection look like in my heart
Right now.
right now?
Yeah.
Not what did this mean to me when I gave my life to Christ all those years ago, but like right now, where do I need to experience this? And that might even be just a really good question to like ask Jesus and to
That
invite
actually
him into.
comes up during our practices.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, and just to point back to our practices and the value of that. But yeah,
So
I
do
mean,
the
those things are in there.
practices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's good questions in there. And there are questions that came out of the podcast. Like,
Yeah.
So
It's neat.
it is.
I'm excited.
And I think that's important because I think up until last year, when we started exploring Holy Week, I had no idea how even the phrase gear up seems stupid for the magnitude of what it is and what it could be. Like
Yeah.
I had no idea to like how to get myself to a place to appropriately experience Easter. It wasn't like Christmas where the
Yeah.
decorations come out like a month prior and music is playing and like all these things. And then Advent, like there is no Advent leading up to Easter except for Holy Week, which is
Or
not
in
as
stores. I mean, if you go
Right.
into a store,
Right,
I got
for sure.
Cadbury eggs a long time
Right.
ago.
peeps
Right.
have been around
Yeah.
for a month.
Yeah, there is no like Advent calendar that you're opening
Yeah,
every day,
yeah.
like leading up to Easter. And like, and there could, and so everything that we talked about, like I learned so much last year, and I kind of feel like by the end of Holy Week last year, it's like, wow, I learned so much. I'm excited to apply this, but the week was over at that point. And so I'm looking forward to taking last year and starting from that foundation place.
Yeah, that's really good.
Because I feel like last year I got a glimpse of the potential of what Easter could be. But now coming into it with an understanding of the potential, it gives me a better understanding of like how I could move towards it, which I think is a big part of like those practices that we've added on of like, okay, now let's really press into this so we can experience this and go beyond just knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think listening to it for a second time, you hear things that you didn't hear before.
Yeah. I think that's good. Okay, so if I'm hearing this podcast, how do I get access to the practices and stuff?
You want like logistics here?
I don't know. I
Wow,
just think it's like,
KJ.
so if I'm
No, it's great.
them, I'm like, well, how do I do this?
So to listen to the actual podcast that was recorded last year, you're going to look up Resurrection Chronicles.
Okay.
Or you can get the link right below.
Yeah, you can get the link right below. But if you're listening on a podcast platform, that's what you're going to search for. But you can also just go over to our Christ Community YouTube page, and there's a playlist there of all of them there. And then the practices are going to be housed there as well.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, and it'll say prayer practice and give you the actual.
Now, people do have the option to be able to text in if they want, and we'll send the practices to them each day if they'd like.
We'll put that information below as well.
And something I would encourage you to do as well, right? Listen to the podcast, maybe even listen to it twice. But the practices, those are things that I actually intend to go through multiple times throughout the day. So it's not just hey, I'm going to do it once right now, and then I'm going to move on with my day. I actually plan to do it like morning, afternoon, evening. Just to really sit with it and to wrestle with it, because they are shorter. So like there is
3
the
to 4
capacity
minutes.
to do
Well,
that.
and so since you're going to do these so often, you need to plan some extra time for the podcast that I did, because it was 5 minutes.
All right,
I have a
KJ.
speech about it.
No, but like that's
Why they can put it on 2.5.
and that's really the hope, though, right? Like,
Man, I probably sound great on 2.5.
the practices aren't just about getting through them. It's actually about like marinating and sitting with it and saying, all right, Lord, like here's an invitation. Search me, know me.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
And the questions can be answered different throughout the day,
Yeah.
depending on.
So that's how I'm doing it.
Okay.
I
like
think
that.
it's cool though. Like I've been excited about the trajectory our church has been on as a whole, of like the experiencing the transformation of things compared to absorbing the content of things.
Yes.
It's been a cool thing. So
I agree.
When I think that's something even just the book of Acts as a whole is forcing into us, right? Because it's not like we're reading a letter that Paul wrote where it's like, all right, here's some theology, here's some stuff to learn. Look, I love that. Like that's really, really important. But the book of Acts, it is so experiential. We're seeing what all of that theology actually did as it shaped, formed, and sent out the community.
that's good.
And so I've been very inspired and compelled to do some things. I mean, we even had like that prayer night a couple weeks ago where it was like, all right, we're reading about this. Let's experience this. And it was amazing. And we're going to do more of them.
Yeah.
Like, it's really fun.
All right, so talking about the experience, and I probably know our time is coming to a space, but Stetson, like 7 or 8 days ago, he sent me this text. I want to bring up the train guy, because the train guy kind of embodies the heart I have for our experience this upcoming 7 days. I don't know how, but in my heart of hearts, it's like, man, if people could feel like this, by the time Easter shows up, that would be something I would applaud and be excited about. So he sent me this text that had a video in it, and it's this guy from England who's probably 17 or 18.
Yeah, maybe his early 20s.
Early 20s. I don't know. I'm at
We're old,
the
so
age
y'all
I
look
can't tell.
younger than
Some young kid.
Yeah, he's a kid.
Some young kid who he loves trains.
Yeah.
but the sound of them, he compares them to a symphony
Mhm.
of his favorite band.
Mhm.
And so if it's possible to attach a video of this to this podcast, that'd be really fun. Because he videos himself as trains are passing by. Ugh. And he loses it.
Yeah.
Like he
It's
cannot
like moved to tears.
he
yeah.
and he's just like, whoa, you know, like his mind is blown.
Yeah.
And I was telling Stetson, like, that's how I feel about the biblical text. Like, but then, so if you think about these movements of the Spirit, there are these practices. This is Holy Week. They're big. It's like a train is coming by, and so this kid has to do a separate video explaining the things he feels, because people are like, I don't think he's doing this for real. Like, he has to be making this up.
Okay.
And
Yep.
so he's explaining his heart. Like, here's why I feel what I feel and see what I see and blah, blah, blah. And I think, like, doing these podcasts, it's us saying, here's how I feel what I feel and how I see what I see, so that you can feel and see what I feel. And so in the upcoming 7 days, there's a train coming by.
Mhm.
And I hope our responses can be these really fun, big, huge feelings that are based on the truth of a big thing passing by.
Yeah. And we don't just treat it as a vehicle to get us to a destination, but there's something about it in itself that is worth remarking and being like, wow.
And so he has this clip that he gets in a car and he tries to beat a train, and he's just cracking up the whole time. Like, have you ever done that alongside the presence of God? You know, like, man, like, I want that. And so,
That's
that's the picture I get for this from Palm Sunday to Easter. So
That's amazing.
I want to end with that.
That's great. We'll see you guys next time.